This build is all about flowers. No, seriously, endless flowering. In this wood and water build, we're giving all the enemies flowers and deflecting when they attack us in response. Martial arts and deflecting are the keywords for today, so let's break it all down. Let's go. I couldn't think of an engagement hook for this video, so just comment down below for the algorithm, please. Thank you. Love you guys. So summarizing this build, this came together on my stream the other day when I did a stream like build and theory crafting, and I was trying to figure out what I was going to do with the wood virtue and how I was going to put something together. And wood's kind of like a tanking thing, but I didn't really like just being straight in wood and tanking. It just felt like it was missing something. And then I found these Pair Swords of Aspiration, and the martial arts on them, endless flowering, where you just stand there and spin your swords. That's basically it. You just stand there and spin until you run out of spirit. And the interesting thing about this is your spirit will drain slowly depending on, your stats and everything. So you can kind of just stand there and use this for days. It's pretty hilarious, the amount of damage that it does when it does clip enemies when they do hit you, and the fact that you can avoid being staggered out of it, and also you'll stagger most enemies out of their basic attacks when they come anywhere near you while you're triggering this. So we're leaning heavily into this martial arts, but also the Man of Benevolence set that we're using gives you some HP back and gives you some flexibility with deflecting and other things in this kit. And that's kind of why I really like it in this way. I tinkered with a lot of different variants, and we'll get into that in a little bit, but I've decided to go with this because it gives you the flexibility to just play, I don't want to say normally, but just not lean super into the martial art and deflect, attack, use ice weapon, use lightning weapon, what have you, and just like play as a kind of a normal build with flexibility. And then when you just want to stand still, you can cast Focus Zone on the ground to buff yourself, plus buff your martial arts in various ways, and just stand there and spam endless flowering, and it, destroy enemy spirit while dealing a decent amount of damage. And then you can follow up with fatal strikes. It's really beneficial, and it's actually hilarious how well this works. I suspect that if you spent all of your time perfecting your jewels and all your special effects and like limiting how much spirit you lose while using this effect and increasing your martial arts, etc., you could really destroy enemies with this, just standing there and spamming this ability. All right, so let's break this all down. We'll start with the Wizarding Spells. Now, I am going ice weapon, and you could go lightning weapon. Because this is wood and water, you have access to both of these, and because you will put this effect on your weapon and then you can stand there and spin with the martial arts, that effect will then trigger because of that. It's really up to you whether you want to use ice or lightning. It's really personal choice. I have picked ice because I just made a build with lightning, so I wanted to do something a tiny little bit different, but honestly, it doesn't matter. Either is fine. But let's talk about those statuses quickly. So chill, what it does is it reduces stone resistance and increases automatic spirit depletion during high spirit, while shock reduces toxic resistance and gradually decreases the enemy's spirit. So shock is probably the more stronger one because you can decrease that spirit faster, and then also you can follow up with fatal strikes, but that's really up to you. I'm using Aqua Blink as a movement ability. Really, you don't have to use this. I just like it, and we got points in water, so you may as well use the Teleporterino. We're also using amplified damage to increase our overall damage output. This is great to use just before you cast a martial art, or even before you follow up an enemy with a fatal strike, because it gives you that extra amount of damage that you will do. And I'm also using Focus Zone, and what this does is this is a wood spell that will put a effect on the ground that will increase your damage as long as you're standing in it. Now, because of the way endless flowering works, that we don't actually move, you can just stand there, get this buff, stand there, and just paste away at the enemy. There is also a defensive buff version of this, so you could run that if you wanted to, but that's really up to you. The Divine Beast we're using for this build is XZ? I don't know. I'm terrible with names, guys. All right, so what this does is it gives you a martial arts damage bonus. It also decreases the amount of spirit you use with martial arts, and it also applies slow on an enemy when you hit them with a martial art, which decreases their movement speed, so chances are they will stay inside of your spinning radius for longer. If you cast the Divine Beast, it will increase your spirit recovery and HP damage dealt, as well as apply fire to enemies, but realistically, we're using it for the passives, but you can obviously cast it because it is still a good ability. For your attributes and virtues, you're really looking at an even split here between wood and water. Adding more points into water will increase your damage. More points into wood will increase your HP a little bit more. Really, an even split is roughly fine. My stats here, I've got slightly more in wood to water, but that's really up to you and to how you want to balance that, whether you want more defensive capabilities or more offensive. We want to have at least 8 points into fire so we can have amplified damage as a spell, and a few points into earth so that we can actually wear this armor set, because you will want to have a little bit of extra increase to your weight limit. So I've got 10 points in here, so my weight is a little bit higher, so I can actually do some dodging in combat. Let's move on to the equipment. We touched on the swords a little bit already, but the Pair Swords of Aspiration is the key here, and the Endless Flowering. So what this will do is, as long as you hold the buttons down, I should have pointed that out earlier, if you hold down these inputs to cast this ability, you will just stand there and spam it forever. At high spirit, it will have an increase to its damage, as well as prevent you from staggering from incoming attacks, except like critical blows. That's the main times you want to cast it, is when your spirit gauge is in the blue side, so you get that buff so that you can tank some of the initial hits as enemies try and hit you while you're actually just standing there and casting it. And when enemies come in your radius, they will actually get staggered out of their own attacks, depending on the type of enemy. Bigger enemies won't, but you can just stand there and tank all those hits because of the wood that we have as well, which increases our HP. Your secondary weapon here is kind of up to you. It doesn't really matter. I've got the Jade Green Staff equipped, but you're probably never really going to switch. Same goes for your ranged weapon as well, as long as you're paying attention to the special effects and adjusting the jewels on them. I did read into my comments that people said that ranged weapons don't actually apply the secondary effects. They do. It's the one that you have active at that time, right? Same as your main like melee weapon. If you have, say, your melee weapon A active, the passives for that will be active, same as range, depending on A and B, whichever one's active has those effects active. All right, moving on. The Man of Benevolence set is what we're using here. It gives HP as well as HP recovery upon deflection. So any standard deflection, you'll generate HP. So if you get really good at deflecting, you'll just generate HP for days. We also get some extra spirit fervor upon HP recovery, so we gain spirit from attacking, as well as we do extra damage while at maximum health, which for the most part you may not actually be at, though if you're playing the build in a different way and focusing more on just like playing, I don't want to say normally, but you know, like not leaning into the martial arts properly and you just attacking enemies at max health, you'll deal a significant amount of extra damage. So it's worth pointing that out. And in the same way that if you are about to fatal strike an enemy, and if you can pop a potion to give yourself max health and then follow up for that extra damage increase, you'll see significant bonuses from that. From your jewels here, the main thing is focusing on martial arts damage, as well as applying effects like damage amplification upon martial arts, those things that give you either buffs or debuffs to the enemies upon the applying of martial arts. But for the most part, as long as you've got anything that buffs your damage or your martial arts damage, you'll probably be doing pretty well. This set comes from ууObecome as well. If you max out him as a sworn brother, you'll get this set plus these weapons at max rarity. So that's the quickest way to get it, and he's a pretty early companion you get in the game. As an alternative, the Unscrupulous set is something I tinkered with a lot on stream, and you could absolutely use this for this build. This set functions almost exactly the same in the way that you get 2 debuffs if you apply martial arts. So if one is slow and one is spirit vulnerability. So in that case, you could switch your divine beast to something else and apply a different effect, say power gain upon martial arts from Zuko. But for the most part here, I decided to go with this set because it feels a little bit more flexible. The Unscrupulous set is very heavy, so you would need a bit more of investment into metal. Plus it's a bit harder to play it just as a normal build rather than leading directly into the martial arts. But it does work if you wanted to use that and get even more status effects off. Moving on to some quick tips. I have mentioned it a couple of times, but don't get locked into just using this martial art. It is extremely strong, and it is the key focus of this build, is getting this off and just standing there and spamming this ability. But this build is designed to be flexible. It's designed to give you the option to dodge and to attack and to deflect and to move around. And that's what I like about builds. If you pay attention to any of my build videos, I like to do multiple things. I don't just want to stand there and spam one specific attack or something. So that's why I've done this with this build. When you're deflecting as well, you can hold your guard before you deflect. So if you do miss the deflect timing, at least you'll block the attack. And it's wedging with Endless Flowers that you can just tank those hits too. So when you cast it in high spirit, just to reiterate, you will be able to tank a bunch of hits. And because of our high HP, because of wood, you can just stand there and spam until your spirit runs out or the enemy gets their stance broken. You can follow up with a fatal attack. So that's the build, guys. Let me know in the comments what you think. Thanks for watching this video till the end. Thank you to our members for supporting the channel. My name is Norza, and I hope you have a great day.